Linda Kennedy. I'm a Yuin woman from the South Coast of New South Wales. Just to start off by acknowledging Ghana country and become something within an institutional framework, which is that checkbox with here is the emergency exit and here are the toilets and we acknowledge country. But for me as a Yuin woman, that acknowledgement comes from a place of respecting your country and hoping and believing in a future where my people on the South Coast can treaty here with your people. I'm a believer and I hope that we all can get there. Also to acknowledge, I know we've got at least one Yuin sister here, Angeline. Shout out to anyone else from South Coast. I know there's Simon and Leyland are here from Merry-Gone Theatre Company, so we've got some home ground here. And sister girl, I would not have come here if Steve had just invited me. To have a blackfella within a curatorship team is really important when it comes to getting other blackfellas here. And I don't think that I'm the only blackfella that feels that way. So just to get that through, that we need black people within these institutions to broaden that scope of accessibility. So thank you, Alexis, for being deadly. Just to put a foundation here, my background's in architecture and design. I frame myself as a design activist, for lack of better words. I've I guess, practiced within architectural frameworks in public institutions with local governments and in private practice, both which were awful experiences, which is why I work for myself. I've started up my design studio, which is called Future Black, which is founded about 4 years ago, which started as a blog, which was a space for me to write freely without having my work edited. Started as a writer because I was still at uni, and when you're working in that space, as a junior, you're drawing toilets and car parks, and you don't get to have a voice. So I guess as well for blackfellas, when you work in institutions, not only is your voice edited, but it's framed around that's only important for other Aboriginal people, when the reality is our voice is important to anybody working or practicing whatever your creative practice or whatever you do on this country, as everywhere you stand is Aboriginal land. It's not just important for blackfellas, but for everybody that's here. So my work as a designer is founded on decolonisation. So I think this word can be really confronting for a lot of people, not just white people, but blackfellas too. But the reality being that in a white construct, we've been, archaeological dated to over 60,000 years, but our people have been here since the first sunrise. That is a really powerful thing for us to know that we are the oldest living, continuous, sustainable culture in the world. So when we're looking for answers, for change, the answers are with us in our cultures. So for me, as a Yuin woman, has anybody here who's been to Wollongong? Most people? That's pretty mad. So people live there? Few people live in there, mad. That's awesome. So so the Yuin coast for me has been the home for my people. I've got family coming up from the coast from Gunai in Victoria, and Wodjabalak on Western Victoria as well. That continuation of our histories are of the coast, but I'm a saltwater woman, that's what I connect to. So you may be aware, for people who may be just seen photos, but the Illawarra is framed by an escarpment all the way around from Stanmore Park in the north, right down to Kiama in the south. And our mountains there go from around 200 to 400 metres above sea level, so we're surrounded by a huge escarpment. And within Tourism Wollongong, this is where the mountain meets the sea, that's their little buzz line. But the historical context of that for us as blackfellas is that is our dreaming. Warrabinji Nandagari is our red-bellied black snake dreaming. So whatever we do there as blackfellas is that protection, a historical protection which no one can take away from us. And I guess there's a real frustrating thing there when you work on country that people are like, cool, mad, you're from here. But I don't know that there's really an understanding of what that means for us. Like my history, my people are grounded in that place. So when it comes to talking about decolonisation within these structures, I guess another way sometimes people frame it is exit colonialism. As a designer and looking at the built environment, it's having an understanding that architecture, design, urban planning, any infrastructural projects within this landmass have been used as tools to assimilate our people, to force us to live like white people, whether that's through housing, public architecture, theatres. Like, I don't give a fuck if a theatre was built 70, 100 years ago. We have been here since time immemorial. Like when it comes to how to create change, to renovate, to, like you're putting Band-Aids on Band-Aids on Band-Aids. When we talk about the status quo, since we have been here forever, and I don't say that as a word, we have been here since the first sunrise, that shifting the status quo was when white people came here. Like, it's not that what's happening now is the norm. Like, our whole world changed with invasion, and it's not sustainable. Coming in with colonialism came capitalism, and this need and this greed and this self-assertion to take and to own. And like, for me as a designer, I see that in this really messed up attitude of ownership and land ownership. And then that's been pushed back on us with things like native title, about being traditional owners and owning this space and being, we use that word custodians around looking after things and managing country and managing space. But without that this is mine. And we need to shift that, to shift those constructs of what colonialism has brought here in that need and greed. And for me as an architectural designer, that comes through in the way that I practice, but also as a designer, but also in the governance. So having an understanding that decolonisation is not just one thing, we all do it. We can all do that in different ways, and how we deconstruct those governance structures is a really important aspect, which anybody can do, whatever field that you work in. As a designer, that comes in two main areas. One is respecting country and what that means to actually have an awareness of your place and a deeper connection other than just the landscape, because country encompasses so much more than just what we see and what we feel. And also respect for community. So acknowledging that every project that you work on, wherever you are, has a very specific and real living community there. So how do you push your respect from that from every aspect that you work in? So just small things like community engagement processes. How do we shift the budgeting structures within this country wherever you work so that a bigger portion of the budget can actually be put on community engagement, so you can pull people in without saying, we want to take your time, we'll offer you morning tea, but I get paid and you don't. And how do we actually shift that to place stronger value on the people that bring projects to life? So I'll talk a little bit about a current project. So I'm working on a project at the moment at Belambia Public School, which is in the northern suburbs of the Illawarra. It's a pretty low socioeconomic area. I've been looking for rentals recently, and that's the lowest rent in Belambia, and everything has bars up on the windows. Belambia is a corruption of a Dharawal word, palumba, which means no. So I think it's a really curious thing that my first project on country just starts with that no. I'll do what I want, and you can just take it. But a really curious thing, so a foundation of my work creatively is around how we use creative arts and cultural practice for community engagement to get better design outcomes. So how do we use performing arts, creative arts, drawing, whatever it might be, to connect your community and your user group with country, so that your user group's foundation is not on whatever your built project is going to be, but actually connecting to this place. And then using that time that you've had with the community and connecting to then move on to a design process, which means giving those tools to the people that you're working with, rather than me saying, I'm a designer, I know what's best, and you take it. And you now, that re-assimilating, like I don't want to do what they've done to us. So this project at Belambia was with a primary school. They were looking for a new outdoor education space. They were framing it as a yarning circle. And basically, there's about 40% black kids at that school, which is pretty big for the Illawarra, one of the higher Indigenous populations at a public school. And the black families don't want to come onto the school grounds. So they'll wait at the gate and send their kids through to school. And when you've got issues with school attendance or other kinds of behavioural issues at school, unfortunately within these institutions there does need to be some kind of relationship to start to move on with those challenges. And this is not just unique to the Illawarra, this is across many communities. So having this outdoor education space was like, oh, do I want to do this project? It's pretty small. Their budget, they told me they've got a $10,000 budget. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to do this project with $10,000? So anyway, with a bit of yarning and thinking, I was thinking, okay, I'll go in, I'll pitch, we'll see. They took it. I told them that I wanted to use creative practice as that engagement tool. We'd run workshops with the students and move on to a design process. What sold the project? I went in saying we would use creative practice, not really, when you pitch, you don't really have a whole concept of an idea. Thinking maybe we'd use painting or mapping and this kind of thing, but I've been working collaboratively with Camilla Ray dancer and artist Nathan Leslie, who's also here, who's a dancer, and we were thinking about how can we use dance to get those ideas of space and country. As soon as the school heard dance, they were like, yeah, let's do it. And I left that meeting being like, this is fucked. This project is about design. Like, how did you win them over when I've worked my ass off? This is my country, and you come in here, and like, just who the fuck are you? Like, I was wild, and my older brother was there too, and I'm like, why didn't you stick up for me? Like, I'm a woman here working on country. Anyhow, when I left, I was wild. I was really angry. I was really upset. And just also this frustration, like, why don't people get it? Like, space movie, I can't see you, mob. Like, we're in a black box. We could be on anyone's country. Like, I don't know what time it is, where the sun's at outside, what the weather's like out there. Like, I don't feel comfortable in this institution. And how do we start to shift those things? And when you're trying to convince mob and then they just want to dance, you're like, And anyhow, working collaboratively for community engagement with another creative practice, in this case dance, was an amazing experience. Getting young people and teachers, like white teachers, middle-class white people, dancing our yarn of the escarpment was pretty mad. And it was performed at Reconciliation Week. There were around 1,200 people in attendance because they do a reconciliation walk. This is also another contention, like as a designer, like personally, fuck reconciliation. Like from my perspective, reconciliation is things that white people need to do, and it always gets framed around white people telling black people what we need to do. So having to then do a performance for a reconciliation walk was, a bit like suck it up, girl. But we had two elders there, Uncle Richard Archibald, who have been working with very closely, and Auntie Sherilyn Robinson. So having their leadership and guidance forces you to suck it up. We need our elders involved in our projects so that when my own ego gets in the way, I can, what's the bigger picture here? But even that, look, the dance went awesome. To see someone, and thank you to Nathan, choreograph something for, 140 kids. As a designer, to see somebody else working in their creative practice and choreograph, orchestrate, put together something else, forces you outside of your constructed frameworks. For me as an architectural designer, to see that there's a whole other way of doing things and thinking about things where you don't have to draw everything up and things come together. It changed the school environment. We made up a whole bunch of dance bands and headbands, and just in the Corey colours, and the school principal, who is very strict on uniform policy within the school, allows the students to continue wearing the headbands or wristbands, and has up until now, and this was 6 months ago, which is pretty mad. And I guess the other side of that, the principal, Michelle's her name, we had a smoking ceremony to kick off the day, and she was very touched by the spiritual connection, and she cried some white tears along the way. And I remember leaving that day and just being like, this woman, like, she just wants to dance, and then she comes and cries. But at the next client meeting, she increased the budget by $20,000. So I can accept that dance sold a design project because it means we got to invest more money in the community engagement process and also invest in better materials for the built project. It means that I get to now engage our local Aboriginal Lands Council for the actual landscape build, which I couldn't have afforded before that extra bit of money. It means we get to use our sandstone from back home, which otherwise we would have been using a timber or a cheaper material, but being able to use a stronger hardy material sourced on country means that kids can play more in the area. They have other outdoor seating areas which are timber, and the kids aren't allowed to stand on it, which is like, it's a primary school, like what do you know. So being able to use better materials in that design process is being able to extend the project within the actual plant sourcing, so that I can now engage more community members with local plant knowledge on the project and pay them. Like, I will not engage blackfellas if I can't pay them And I would extend that to anybody working in whatever field you're in. But back to that point, I don't know how long I've taken. That's my 10-minute warning. I'll basically say, for me, decolonisation is with my architecture and design process, but that can be whatever tools you have, you can do that in your field. And just do it. Don't wait for someone to give you permission. Don't try and fit it into your reconciliation action plan. Just do it. Okay.